Gather round, let the stories unfold from the pages of old where the brave hearts are told. Women of wisdom, fire in their eyes, rising up high, ready to claim the skies. We're shining bright like a beacon of grace, echoes of faith in this timeless space. From Esther to Mary, the strength we embrace. 21st century woman, let's run this race.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are streaming from. Welcome to another episode of Women for Global Impact, Women of the Bible. I hope you can hear me well. I hope you can see me well. I see that I have one person on watching right now. If you can hear me, please just drop a comment in the chat and let me know that you're on with me and you can hear me. I want to just mention that we are broadcasting now purely from YouTube. And there is two ways that you can watch every Wednesday at noon. One is the KIN network. So it's KIN network. It's Kingdom Empowered Network. That is one way to watch me every Wednesday at noon. And the second way to watch me on YouTube is I Believe God Ministries International YouTube page. So those are the two ways that you can watch me today for the show. So again, two ways to watch is the KIN network, which is the Kingdom Empowered Network. And you can also watch from I Believe God Ministries YouTube page, right? So I wanted to put that out there. We are not broadcasting on Facebook anymore. We are broadcasting strictly from the YouTube channel. So as you come into the stream today, I'm going to ask that you please drop your name in the chat so that I can say hello to you as we, get ready to start our conversation. For the month of September, October, November, and December, we are focusing on women, right? We're focusing on women who steward certain things, right? The stewardship and legacy of women. And for the month of September, our focus is on, actually, it's legacy builders that we're really talking about for the next 4 months. And for the month of September, we're talking about women who steward family, women who stewarded family. I had to get my notes because I have so many things going on related to women of the Bible. And it's really exciting. And so if you're watching the replay, welcome. If you're joining me live, drop your name. If you're watching the replay, please go ahead and drop your name in the chat as well. I'm trying not to make too much rustling noise with my notes that I've taken for today. Well, let's get into this. Who are we speaking about today? Well, for the past 2 weeks, we talked about Sarah. And last week we talked about Rebecca. Well, today we're talking about the woman who steward lineage, right? So I'm going to call her the restorer of lineage, the restorer of lineage. And that person is no other than Naomi. I almost said Ruth, right? Because the story about Naomi is in the book of Ruth. But Naomi is the woman who restored her lineage. So let's talk about that. The story of Naomi can be found in the book of Ruth, right? The book of Ruth is truly the story about Ruth and Naomi. But today, I want to focus on Naomi. At some point through the next couple of months, I will be focusing more on Ruth. But today, I want to focus on Naomi. Where can we find the story of Naomi? Of course, it is in the book of Ruth. So if you go to Ruth, read Ruth 1, read all the chapters in Ruth, the story about them. But why do I want to focus on Naomi? Again, as I said at the top of this broadcast, she is the restorer of lineage, right? So let's just look at her as to who she is for a moment, right? So she's an Israelite woman from Bethlehem in Judah, and she became a widow and endured great loss. What is her background? The meaning of her name, Naomi, means pleasant. It means sweetness. It means delightful one. However, at some point throughout her story, she referred to herself as bitter, but we're not there yet, right? But her name of itself means pleasant. It means sweetness. It means delightful one. And so you can find in Ruth 1 and verses 20, where after her suffering, right, she referred to herself as Mara. She wanted to be called Mara. That word means bitter, which is the complete opposite of her given name, Naomi, right? Because she was reflecting grief. And that is so understandable, even in today's culture, that we get into these places, we get into, this mode where things aren't really great, like things aren't good for us. And so we feel upset, we feel offended, we feel some type of offense, we're going through grief, we're going through all the things, and we just start to take on those feelings onto ourselves, right? And that is exactly what Naomi did in the book of Ruth and throughout her journey of her life, right? Who is the tribe? Whose tribe is Naomi from? Well, Naomi was from Bethlehem of Judah. Da 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 da. So she is from the tribe of Judah. And we all know the tribe of Judah, right? If you go back and look at the history of Judah, right? Judah is Jacob or Israel's fourth son. And Judah was the chosen one, right? To carry on the Abrahamic covenant all the way down to the Messiah, right? And that is the tribe that Naomi is from. She's the tribe of Judah, the same tribe that King David and ultimately Jesus Christ descended, which means her position, even in this time, was significant, right? Now, the story tells us about her husband. Her husband was Elimelech, right? Elimelech. And his name means my God is king. That is what the name Elimelech means. His name means my God is king. Naomi and Elimelech had two sons, right? Mahlon and Chilion. Mahlon means sickness or weakness. That's the meaning of his name. And Chilion, his name's mean failing or wasting away. I'm like, oh my God, I was blown away by the meaning of those names. Her two sons, one meant sickness or weakness, Mahlon, and Chilion means failing or wasting away. Well, obviously they did, right? Both of them passed away, but not before Mahlon married Ruth and Chilion married Orpah. So Orpah and Ruth were Naomi's daughters-in-law, right? Just to give you a little history about just speaking about her, right, in greater detail. Why did she move from Bethlehem? Because the story took us to Moab, which is where both Ruth and Orpah is from, right? They're Moabites women, which means they're not Israelites. They're not Jewish women, right? And so she moved from Bethlehem with her family to Moab because there was a severe famine in Bethlehem at that time. And Moab was right across the Jordan River, which is east of Israel, right? And so while in Moab, that was where the sons died, right? Not only did her sons die, but her husband also died, leaving Naomi a widow with two daughters-in-law, right? And so that's the story. Now let's get into how and why the reference of her being the restorer of lineage, right? And again, if you're joining me today and you can hear me or see me, if you can drop your name in the chat, let me know that you are watching with me. Again, welcome to the episode, another episode of Women for Global Impact, Women of the Bible. I would love for you to drop your call. Let me know that you are here watching with me. All right. So this story, the story is in the book of Ruth, but I wanted to highlight one verse that is significant to why I chose Naomi as the restorer of lineage, right? And it's Ruth 1 and verse 16, when Ruth says, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." That was a turning point in Naomi's life. That was a turning point in Naomi's life. And let me set this up for you, right? Here is Naomi living in Moab. She left her home country because of the famine. She was married. She had two amazing sons, and she had two daughters-in-law, right? While in Moab, because there was food there, right? And so that's why she left Bethlehem to go there. Her husband and her two sons died, right? Think about it. And none of her daughters-in-law had children. So in Naomi's mind, her lineage is done, right? There's no one to carry on her legacy. Her husband is dead. There's no legacy. Her sons are dead. There's no children to carry on Naomi's legacy. And so she turned internally into herself and start thinking about, what is my purpose? I have nothing left, right? They're gone. Oh, like, what's next for me? I don't have a grandson, a granddaughter to carry on this legacy, right? But I wanted to just share, even in that moment, there is a spiritual guide in Naomi, and we're going to see that in a moment. So she urged her daughters-in-law to go home, return to their home, because she has nothing left to offer. I don't have any sons. My husband is gone. I don't have anything to offer you. You don't have children where I can be the grandmothers. So there's nothing left for me. So go back home to where you belong, right? And I can understand that. I can understand feeling that way. And if you're listening to me today and you find yourself in a situation like this, I can understand it looking bleak, right? It looking bleak. And it may not be your sons, it may not be your daughters. It could just mean that life is at a place for you right now where you feel like all hope is gone, right? But I want to show you something, even in this conversation that Naomi is having with her two daughter-in-law, right? Because one of the daughter-in-law decided that, I am not leaving you. And she literally told her, right? I am not leaving you. And I highlighted verse 16 because of the words that Ruth said to Naomi, right? Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. That is a declaration of covenant love. That is a declaration of a covenant love, right? And so it reminded Naomi of her influence and worth. Here is this daughter-in-law that is saying, I'm not leaving you. I know you're trying to get me to go because your son is no longer here, because you don't have a husband and I don't have a husband, but I'm committed to you. I'm committed to staying with you. I'm committing to being by your side. I don't want you to be alone, right? But that is it tells you the love that Ruth had for Naomi and how Naomi must have felt if my daughter-in-law is willing to let everything go that she know of her history or heritage or family, her, her tribe, and come with me. There was a glimmer of hope in Naomi's heart, right? So it was significant because Naomi's guidance, and this is where the mentorship starts coming in, right? Just in that moment, Naomi realized that she still had worth, that here's this daughter in law that has kind of refreshed her faith, right? And probably secure a place in the legacy that Naomi thought she had lost. All was not lost. There was a glimmer of hope here. Also, I want to point out point number two. So the first one was point number one, right? Ruth's influence on Naomi reminded Naomi that she's a spiritual guide, or that she will be a spiritual guide to her daughter-in-law. Point number two I want to point out is that there was a turning point in Naomi's mindset. Remember, I think it was in Ruth 1 and verse 20, Naomi named herself Mara, and the word Mara means bitter. That means she was just bitter. She was mad. She was upset. She was sick. She didn't want to go on. She had like given up faith and hope. But here was this young lady who said to her, I love you enough to stay and go wherever you're going, and I'm going to take care of you, right? So that became the turning point. And so Ruth's loyalty breathed this fresh air, this fresh perspective into her weary spirit, right? So she was no longer walking back to Bethlehem alone because the famine was over now. And because she had lost everything in Moab, she was getting ready to go back to Bethlehem. But she wasn't walking alone, right? She was walking with someone's future, because Ruth was the future. Naomi is the wisdom. Ruth is the future. And it just reminded me of the story of Mary and Elizabeth, right? Elizabeth was the wisdom. Mary was the future, because Mary was carrying I don't know why I said that, but the Holy Spirit just dropped that in my memory just now, right? But back to the story. Ruth's loyalty breathed a fresh air, like this whole new purpose, this whole new faith, this joy, this hope into Naomi, because she knew now she is walking with someone. She's carrying the future with her. And I think it shifted Naomi's perspective from wanting to tell herself that she's bitter, wanting to say that I don't have anything going on for me, right? So it went from despair to a new expectation, right? Giving her something to live for, giving her something to invest in again. And so before I continue with this, I'm just going to take a moment, and I am going to go on a 22-second break, and I'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Today's sponsor is Global Impact University Consulting, LLC. Are you ready to receive your theology degree? Contact them today.
All right, and we're back, and we're talking about Naomi, the restorer of lineage. And as you know, the story of Ruth and Naomi, and the fact that Naomi had lost her husband and her sons in Moab. And Ruth said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying with you, although Naomi was telling her to go. So now that the famine was over and they're going back to Bethlehem, Naomi recognized that there was something to live for. There was hope. Ruth had provided that hope and that inspiration. And she went from despair to expectation, giving her something to live for again, and giving her something to invest again. So we talked about a couple points here for Naomi. Number one, she was a spiritual guide, because when Ruth said, I'm going with you, she realized that she needed to guide Ruth. Number two, we talked about the turning point. She went from bitter to hopeful, right? She went from despair to expectation. She went for being depressed, and negative, to wanting to live again because she can invest in this young woman. Number three, Naomi is a legacy restorer. And I want to get to this point because that was the topic of how I wanted to look at Naomi from a legacy perspective and even from a stewardship perspective, right? So back in Bethlehem, Naomi mentored Ruth, right? Taught her how to glean, how to position herself, right? Even when she go out to the fields where they were doing all the shearing, right? Naomi positioned Ruth, and that is how Ruth ended up meeting Boaz and embracing her future. I don't want to get into the story of Ruth, so I'm not going to go into the whole Boaz and the expectation there. That's going to come down, but I just want to talk about Naomi and how she taught Ruth, how she trained her, how she positioned her, how she coached her, how she guided her, how she mentored her, right? And through this mentorship, Ruth's marriage to Boaz secured provision for both Naomi and Ruth, and it restored Naomi's family line, right? So that was why I named her the restorer of lineage, right? Naomi, right? So when Boaz and Ruth had their firstborn, the name of that child was Obed, and Obed was Naomi's grandson. So, although she had lost, oh my God, it's so amazing. Although she had lost her two sons, right, which was Mahon and Kilian, here was her grandson, Obed, right? And Obed actually was proof to Naomi that God could rebuild broken lineage and turn loss into legacy, because he restored Naomi's legacy through Obed. And Obed went on to becoming, like the great great grandfather of King David, who is the line of Jesus. So just think about it, right? Naomi came from the line of Judah, right? And it came all the way down, right? Until this beautiful grandson that will ultimately be the lineage of Jesus Christ, right? So God can turn anything around, is what I want to say, right? And here's the modern day lesson I want to give to you if you're watching me today or watching me on the replay. Here is the modern day lesson for women today. Sometimes it takes someone else's faith and loyalty to spark our hope again. Sometimes it takes someone else's action, someone else's proof of love and loyalty to turn things around, to change our hearts and our mindset from being bitter to being expectant, to having hope again, to having faith again, right? And just like Naomi, there's a lot of women in the 21st century, like right now, that can find renewal in mentorship, can find renewal in community, can find renewal in their family, can find renewal by investing in others, even when life take unexpected turns, even when life take unexpected turns. So this is what I want to share with you today, right? When you feel empty, I want you to know that God can use some relationships to remind you that you still have something valuable to pour into others. And sometimes you may not pour it into your blood relative. Sometimes you pour it into an extension of your blood relative. And God can take that and turn it around and to make sure that your legacy stays strong, that your legacy stay solid, that you are the restorer of the breach, that you are the repairer of the breach, that you are the restorer of lineage, right? And that's how we see Naomi. Naomi's story reminds us that you may walk through bitter seasons, but with covenant relationships, like the relationship that Ruth built with Naomi, that God's guidance can turn your life around and change your bitterness into joy and hope and love and peace. And it can become a wellspring of legacy again. So here is what I want to leave with you today as I close out. Who is the Ruth in your life? Right? And are you building a legacy through them? Or here's my other question. Where are you right now in life that you can find someone to mentor, to pour into, someone that can give you that spark of hope and love and joy again, so that it could repair, restore your legacy, your lineage? I'm going to drop some things in the chat for you today. And I want you to, let me just get there. And I want you to take note of this, right? The first thing is, here's a reflection for you. Where have you felt empty or bitter? And in your journey, how might God be using a relationship, a community, or an unexpected friend or ally, or even family member to restore your hope? How can you shift your perspective? And then I want to also leave with you. Let me just get back to my notes. I want to leave with you a declaration. And the declaration is, even in seasons of loss, I believe God can restore my hope and build my legacy just like Naomi. I will embrace the relationships and opportunities God places in my life, knowing they carry the power to renew my future. And I dropped that in the chat for you to just meditate on. All right. This is all I have for you today. I hope that this was enlightening for you. I hope you got something from this. And what I want you to do, guys, is just email me or send me a text and let me know if you are seeing this broadcast, because I want to make sure that you can comment in the chat. I want to make sure that you can log in. I want to make sure that you are seeing this broadcast. There's a notification bell on both of our networks, KIN and I Believe God Ministries International. If you click on that bell, anytime there's a broadcast that's coming out, it will send you a notification that we are live. And then that way you can be with me live, right? But if you're watching the replay, thank you for being with me today. And I look forward to seeing you next week on Women for Global Impact, Women of the Bible. Have a fantastic, fantastic day, evening, and I will see you next week. God bless you. Bye.
Deborah's courage, Rahab's bold heart, lessons of love, each a crucial part. Together we stand, hand in hand we rise. With faith like a river, we'll chart the skies. We're shining.